Hello, everyone. Once again, Microsoft Security Hero, another live session together with you, amazing people. Very welcome to this session. So we are going to learn from another expert from another part of this amazing world. And he's joining us to help us to learn about very specific topic in Microsoft Cloud technology. This is Saidal, community leader of Microsoft Security Hero, and I'm so happy that I have this chance to be on a stage and hosting another session, which is going to be very amazing, very interesting, and very good for us to learn more about specific topic. So, as usual, I have my slides here, which is going to be very simple and very fast, and then we will have our speaker on stage. So today we have Hector Sven together with us to share very interesting topics. So like migrating SQL to Microsoft Fabric, right? So basically there is a big question nowadays when it comes to Microsoft Fabric, but it might sound overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Basically, in this session, we will uncover smart, proven ways to bring SQL database into the Fabric world without rewriting everything. It's cool, right? If you exploring Fabric's new mirror database, you will see how easy it be modernized without losing what already works on it. So I'm not going to spoil the entire great things that Hector is going to share with us. If you haven't joined us yet, at some Microsoft Hero, it's basically the handler that we have on YouTube, LinkedIn, and all social that we are using. Make sure that you are following us. Basically, make sure that you're getting all the notification from our social medias. And of course, if you want to share any topic post about us, hashtag Microsoft Security Hero or Microsoft Hero would be amazing if you add in your post comments. And also we have a short link for aka.ms/join02hero, which lead you to form for registering for learning rooms of Microsoft Security Hero. So what about the another slide? So Microsoft Learn community, we always saying make it as your homepage because it's the main place that you can start learning about Microsoft technology and services. So it's important that you can get the latest update and be connect with experts and other learners and improve your knowledge and basically learn new things. The new update that I can share with you, if you are part of our learning rooms or you are interested to join, basically Microsoft Learning Rooms very soon will be moved to a new platform, which is very interesting, and you will get more and more option to be engaged with the community. So very soon you will get some new updates about Microsoft Learning Room communities. So stay tuned and follow us to make sure that you are getting the latest update about this new transition. And if you want to learn more about Microsoft Learn community, aka.ms/learning rooms. And of course, in our community and also in this live session, we expect you be friendly and respectful to everyone, listen to different opinion, and also be kind and passionate about the question and answers. So with that said, I'm going to bring our amazing speaker today. Hey, Hector, very welcome to Microsoft Zero to stage today.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Said. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So perfect. I think it's time to bring your slides up and people enjoy and learn from Hector about the very interesting topic. And I'm in backstage, Hector. If you need me, just let me know.
Thank you very much, Said. Thank you so much. And welcome everybody to the session. Thank you for being here. I know it's Friday. I know it's late, but I guess we can wrap this up really quickly, and then you can learn something, and then you go to having a beer or whatever you're doing on Friday. But I know, chill, enjoy, and have a little bit of fun over the weekend. So with that being said, let's get going. All right. So because today we have a very interesting topic. So and it's a topic that is really close to my heart, because even though I've been working a lot with Fabric, I have been a background as a database engineer, right? I work as a DBA, and SQL has been, a very part of my professional life. So this is something I enjoy. I even enjoy. But let's not get ahead ourselves just yet. First, I introduce myself. My name is Hector Lopez. I live in Oslo, Norway. I am speaker and author. I'm a data engineer, manager at Accenture. I also I would like to say that I'm an Azure and Fabric expert, and also a DevOps engineer. My contact list and all this, several. As a speaker and author, I have my blog called Tech Taco Friday. I have many articles in the area of data engineering and automation. So you can go up there and check out the QR code here, and you will see all my contact information on my contact platforms. You will be seeing there. All right. Okay. So we are not here to talk about me. We're talking about SQL, right? And before I jump right into the demos, which I have a couple of, I would like to just to put it into context of what we're going to talk about, right? I'm not going to go deep dive in Fabric, but more into this new service within Fabric called Azure SQL Databases, which I guess for many of you are not strange to SQL databases, but they are a new experience, right, within Fabric. And actually, it's currently even under preview. So it's not just yet a production release, but a preview. So it's really interesting. So let me go and just give you a little bit of what we have as a context, because I'm not going to explain today what Fabric is. I'm some sort of assuming that most of you people know what Fabric is in general terms. But making that assumption, I will also say that when you're going in to try to understand Fabric, you always, always, all the time in all documentation, you will see two services, lakehouses and warehouses, right? And many of the documentations focus on this too. So Lakehouses is a flexible data platform, right, that supports structured and semi-structured and unstructured data, right? You have warehouses, which is the equivalent of, if you work with warehouses that are optimized for, for big batches of information and data, right? And it uses this column indexes and stuff like that to make huge amounts of data processed really, really fast. It's really optimized for reading, right? Random data, and not so much for writing operations, but more like reading big bunch of data and summarization. So it's completely optimized for that, right? Okay, so we have also in the Lakehouse that it's mostly all the operations that you have on your Lakehouse. You have to go with Spark. The engine behind the scene is a I believe it's a Spark, and you interact from the programmatic perspective through notebooks, basically Python notebooks. You write it down, and then you use some Python coding, and voila, right? You just use your Lakehouse, and you can manipulate data and do operations. On the warehouse, it's just the same. It's a SQL-based engine, but it's dedicated for analytics, right? So it's tailored for select type of operations. I mean, reading and grouping and summarizing data. And which brings me to the third topic, which is the focus of each technology, because the Lakehouses, it focuses, imagine, you can imagine as an OLAP, which is an online analytical processing, which is designed for complex queries and data analysis. Not too much for OLTP, which is an online transaction processing, which is optimized for transactions, right? Inserts, updates, and deletes. So it's really focusing on, again, on reading and yes, writing using notebooks, okay? In the other side, you have warehouses that are pretty much focused on OLAP, right? Online analytic processes, again, complex queries and data analysis. Not inserting, deleting, and updating. That's not what OLAP analytics shine, right? So let me go to the next slide. In between these two technologies, right, when I started with Fabric, I was like, but something is missing. Because in the real world, right, you have databases, right? And neither one of those services, nor lakehouse nor warehouses, provide the type of things that I was looking for as a SQL DBA, right? For instance, there's no native support for SQL Server transactional logic like store procedures, triggers, complex joins in real time. And what didn't provide as well, it was a very limited suitability for line of business applications. Imagine like you have this database that you've been using and developing for a long time with a very specific logic baked into the store procedures, views, and everything like that. All right. And then you're like, okay, I wanted to use Fabric, but I don't want to reuse. I don't want to recode all of this stuff into notebooks. I mean, think about it, right? Why should I do that? I invested a lot of time, and I can tell you many companies, because I've been working on the field for a long time, and I know that there's many companies that have decades, right, worth of mission critical SQL applications that are tested, working, well structured. I mean, not everyone, but a great majority of them that are in production ready, and they have a lot of things on those servers, right? And are we asking them to spend hours and hours and hours and hours of code, of coding, rewriting that just to adapt into Fabric? Well, no, right? So I was so happy then when they announced that they will introduce SQL databases in Fabric, right? I was so happy because it brings the OLTP support into Fabric ecosystem, right? So SQL databases in Fabric, databases in Fabric are pretty much the equivalent of an Azure SQL database. But now it's integrated in Fabric, and hence you can, using the concept of the one lake and use the data in those databases the same way as any other data from your lake house or for your warehouses, right? And then that same data can immediately start playing with all the services in Fabric, including all the AI capabilities within Fabric immediately, right? So what Fabric SQL database fills the gap by, again, bring OLTP support into the Fabric ecosystem, right? Preserves your logic, your SQL logic, then you don't have to rewrite all that stuff. You can use familiar tools like SQL Server Management Studio, Azure Data Studio, and T-SQLs are fully supported, right? There's also another great thing that I'm just going to talk about in a few minutes, which is the database, the concept of the database project baked into how databases are stored in the code, right? Behind the scenes in the code, which allows you to do versioning control natively on a SQL Azure in a Fabric SQL database, right? That's awesome, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we go to the demo in a few minutes. Okay, now there's a big thing that you need to remember if you're just right after this call, you wanted to try that out and create your SQL database, is that SQL databases in Fabric are still in preview, right? So just be aware of that. Okay, all right. So this slide, what I wanted to show you is, again, right, the intersection between lakehouses, warehouse, and SQL databases, right? In the middle, having SQL as the core language to operate on those 3 services, right? And now I can say that with this, the introduction of SQL databases, I can say that now Fabric can be considered a unified data platform, because now you have OLTP and OLAP, right? Both in the same place, right? So you have the support for transactions, right? You have a service in which you can add that type of data, and it's a perfect, support for your lakehouse and your warehouse, right? So now the summary is that now SQL professionals can now work across all layers of the data stack, right? Without rewriting logic or changing tools. So you can work with unstructured data on your lakehouse. You can work with big data sets in the warehouse, and you can work with transactions in SQL. So you have everything, right? So in that, let me go. Oh, I think I went to, yeah, sorry. I think this one's duplicate. Okay, so that being said, let's jump to the first demo. So what do we do? What do we have to do first? Okay, so the first thing we need to do is let's create a workspace, right? Remember, within Fabric, workspace is the unity that contains all the services that you have in Fabric, right? So is the main container that you can use to provision lakehouses, warehouses, and SQL databases. So I'm going to use one, and this is also because I wanted to show you the automation capabilities that Fabric has, because sometimes one of the criticisms of Fabric is that you can, click your life away on Fabric, and you just, can just click, and you can do anything else. I'll show you that's not true. Obviously, you need to do some coding, but the APIs of Fabric allow you to do something of what I'm going to show you. Now, after we provision our warehouse, or our workspaces with all those 3 components, I'm going to show you that it will, I don't know if it will feel anticlimactic, but you will see that you can connect like any other databases in Fabric, right? With only one condition, which is MFA. And you will see, I mean, SQL server, SQL authentication, meaning user and password in Fabric, is not an option. You can only use MFA, and that's pretty much it, right? That's the only limitation as of now versus the traditional SQL databases that we have only Microsoft Entra ID authentication. You will see in just a second, okay? And we were using, I'm going to show you that you can use Azure Data Studio, Visual Studio Code, but from that point forward, I'm just going to use SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS, because even it has been for a long time, it's still, in my opinion, one of the best when you're dealing with when you're dealing with SQL databases. Okay, so that being said, let me just jump right into one of the first pipeline that I'm gonna launch. All right, and probably I will show you briefly the code, but in this case, I'm going to provision my workspace. Okay, so I'm going to use one branch called Azure SQL Meets Fabric. And I'm going to use DevOps pipeline. I'm going to use the service principal for me to provision this one. And I'm going to send my SQL Meets Fabric.json. And let me launch this one. Boom. Okay. And I will show you in a little bit in the code what's going to happen, or what I'm running with this one. So if I go to Visual, I have the code here in Visual Studio. So let me show you. So right now, using some PowerShell scripting, I am reading this JSON file, as you can see here, right? And what it does is just recursively reads this structure, and it will create, interacting directly with the API of Fabric, this element, right? I'm gonna create a domain called Fabric Catalyst, right, as in the top, and then I'm gonna create a subdomain called Microsoft 0 to Hero, and within that, I'm going to create first one workspace, right? This element that you can see is one workspace called SQL Meets Fabric -dev, using this capacity that you can see here with the capacity. And then I'm going to create a lakehouse called Fabric Lakehouse. I mean, yes. Warehouse called Fabric Warehouse. Wow. I mean, yes. I'm not very creative on the naming. I'm sorry. And then I'm going to create a database called Fabric Database. Again, I'm going to make myself, right, the admin of the workspace, as you can see here. But we can, I may wanted to grant somebody else, right, the members or the contributors or the viewers access. For the time being, I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to create also a second workspace called SQL Meets Fabric -UAT, because at the end, what we're going to show, just to run it up this whole exercise, is we're going to provision the databases, make changes, and then going to publish to a UAT database. That's the objective, right? So I'm just creating right now also the workhouse, the workspace, which is empty. All right. Now the pipeline is running. Hopefully this will take. All right, there it goes. So it says that, let's see. Okay, so everything was created. As you can see here, everything is green. So with that, I can go now to my, let's just put this one like this. And then we can now switch to Fabric, right? Let's go to my workspaces. Let me just refresh this one first, just to make sure that everything is just showing up correctly. Yeah, all right, cool. So as you can see here, right, that I have my domain, Fabric Catalyst created, and then I have a subdomain called Microsoft Zero to Hero. I have my workspace here, SQL Meets Fabric.dev. And if I click this one, you will see 3 services, right? You have your Fabric SQL databases, your lakehouses, and your warehouse. I mean, I can provision more services for the time being. That's good enough. Okay, now, as I said, the next step in our demo, because now we're like, for somebody who hasn't worked with Fabric, and I have this question all the time. All right, now we have a SQL database. How can I connect it, right? How can I, because right now, if I click through the portal, I mean, it's pretty obvious that you can go directly into the portal, right, and check what tables and launching queries and stuff like that. Let me do this one really quickly, right? So right now the table is empty, the database is empty, so nothing really exciting happening here, except that we can make queries. Even though it's a great way to interact with your database, I mean, if you compare with using tools like SQL Server Management Studio, I mean, it's an order of magnitude, several order of magnitudes better SQL Server Management Studio. I mean, let's face it, it is, right? That's why it's a specialized tooling to interact with a SQL database. So sooner or later, we will have to connect. And I have the question all the time because people is like, how can I connect to a SQL databases or a SQL warehouses or whatever in Fabric? I'll show you. Okay, before I go into that, also going to tell you, right, that each and every one of those services, so remember that we have our SQL Lakehouse, like here, right? And if I really quickly here click, I can go and create, for instance, adding CSV files or Parquet files in here, right? And create tables. But as you can see here, all of those 3 services have something in common, which is the SQL endpoints, right? And it is via this SQL endpoint that we will be able to connect, right? The SQL endpoints offer that common language for you to communicate with those services. So let's go ahead. So I'm going to open up a new session of SQL Management Studio from scratch. So I'm just cleaning up so we don't have anything and nothing gets confused with something that I did already have, even though I have this one for the demo, but I just wanted to use a new instance of SQL Server Management. Let's see. There it goes. It's opening. Okay, there it goes, right? So we can start from this. Now, let's say that we want to connect to our SQL. Let me just take this one off. Okay, there it goes. Okay. So let's say that we wanted to connect to our SQL database, which is pretty obvious that we wanted to do that. So two things that we require, as usually in a database, we need the server and the database. How do we get that? As you can see here, if we click the three dots, you can see this open in Visual SQL Studio, open in SMS. These two are just quick reference. I mean, basically, they just give you what is the name of the server, what is the name of the database, right? If you wanted to go a little bit, let me see, where is settings? In the settings as well, we have the connection settings right here, right? And you can see this data source, right? All the way here is the name of the server plus our initial catalog, which is the name of the database, right? So I'm just giving you two options. Let's go with the simplest one for the time being, which is, okay, let's open in SSMS. It won't open the SSMS. It just gives you the, the parameters or the information that you need to connect. So let's go connect database engine. And I'm going to copy paste the server name, and let's copy paste the database name in here in connection properties. And this step is really important because unless you're admin of the database, usually your DBA or the person who's created the workspace, it won't allow you, or it won't give you admin to the whole SQL database, but to a specific database. So it's really important for you go to connection properties, right, and copy paste the database name here, right? So the next thing I mentioned is that SQL Server authentication is not going to work, right? The only type of authentication that works with as of now with Fabric SQL databases is Microsoft Entra MFA. So yeah, let's go, and then let's click on connect. I mean, it will go to the very familiar protocol of the handshake and asking my MFA to authenticate. So let's see. Okay, there it goes, the master thingy. So let me just, again, did I chose the incorrect one? Okay, let me just copy the database name. Whoop. Yeah, I think I deleted probably. Okay, so let me try it one more time. Yes, there it goes. Now it will ask me my account. So I will click OK, and then boom, there it goes, right? So as you can see here, I mean, nothing fancy. It's just a SQL Server Management Studio, and then you can connect as any other database. Now, really quickly, let's go, and now let's try to connect to our lakehouse or warehouse. So I'm going to just use this one, and again, here in the SQL endpoint, we can get the, let's see, copy SQL connection string, right? Let's click on this one, and it will say, okay, this is a connection string for you to connect to the SQL Analytics endpoint within my lakehouse. Let's see what happens. Let's go and create an SQL database. Let's paste this one, all right? On here, on the connect to database, again, one suggestion or best practice is that you actually specify the name of, in this case, the name of the database or the database that you will use is the name or either the lakehouse or the warehouse, all right? So that's the way it works. Now let's click connect, and again, it will go through the authentication handshake and protocol. I'm just going to click OK, and then if everything works just fine, let's see, yes, we have our connection. So you will see this. They're a little bit different. You can tell the difference between this one, it's database.fabric.microsoft.com. This one, it's datawarehouse.fabric.microsoft.com. And this server, data warehouse, will publish the, will give you access to the 3 endpoints. All right. Again, so this is the way it works. And then, yeah, you can see immediately what we have in our warehouse. In this case, in the warehouse, already created a few tables. So we have the tables, and we have everything. All right. So let's see how. Okay, 6:31, time's flying. So the Visual Studio Code, I can show you right here really, really quickly that we have also the connections ready. You can create and connect to your SQL databases using Visual Studio Code, as well as we can use our SQL data, Azure Data Studio to connect to the database. So in terms of tooling, even though the tools, in my experience working with this, it's a little bit behind of the latest, it's a little bit lagging, right, in terms of functionality versus what you can do in Fabric. Both, they work. All right. All right. So let's take this one off. So we'll fulfill our first demo. So before I go to the next part, I need to go back to my presentation because there's a couple more things that I need to discuss with you. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have, now that we know that we can have, whoops, there you go. Yeah, okay. Now that we know that we need some sort of a support to bring some of the databases that we have, let's say in Azure, or probably Snowflake, or probably we wanted to link. I mean, not what I'm just saying is that not for all those data platforms, not each and every one of those options fit with this schedule. But let's say that we want a database that we wanted to bring forward, right, to Fabric to use the data, right? We have two options now, or we either migrate or database, or we mirror it. And I'm going to show you the two options. So usually on the migrate, I would say that the best case scenario is when we have small to medium databases where minor disruption it's acceptable, right? Let's say, for instance, we have a very good cases when we have SQL databases right now running on SQL Server 28 servers. And believe me, I've seen those. I just recently worked with one of those, and they're like, okay, so we need to move this one away. And if we can move it to Fabric, that will be even better, right? Because we wanted to interact with more services within Fabric. So that's a perfect candidate for us to move. All right. Low traffic applications and to support data warehouse or analytics initiatives. All right. Now, what about mirroring? Let's say that you have, and again, you have Fabric and you wanted to use some of the services, and you have on your house, in the other hand, a Snowflake implementation, let's say, right? With gigabyte, I mean, gigas over gigas or even terabytes worth of data. And you want to make that data available in Fabric, right? And you want to make it that fast. So migrating could be, but we have the option of mirroring, which is actually bringing the table and publishing the table directly into your lakehouse and using the SQL endpoints to interact with it. And I will show you exactly what that means. Just bear in mind and keep it in the back of your mind that you have those two options, right? So for mirroring, let's say that you have a high availability database or even real-time analytics workloads that you cannot afford to major disruptions, but nonetheless, you need the data to be in Fabric. Okay, let's mirror it, right? We are not going to disrupt our source. What we're going to do is just to bring it forward to Fabric, all right? So let's say that another good reason why to do mirroring is because we wanted to do an incremental adoption of Fabric. I mean, not everything all at once. Let's start small. Let's use some of the databases. Let's bring it over, use the services, play with it a little bit, understand how it works, the cost, and so on and so forth. And then eventually, little by little, we can migrate our workloads to Fabric. Okay? All right. So let's see. In that context, then the next question would be how, right? How do we do this? I mean, in this one, I think I missed to put in this presentation the title this option says for the migration option, has nothing to do with mirroring, but if the case is migrating, we have two options: to migrate only the schema and then using pipelines to copy the data from the source to our database, or we have the backup restore option via what we call a BACPAC, right? A BACPAC is like a database, the equivalent of a database backup, right? So a BACPAC, it's basically a package that contains both the schema and the data, right? And the cool thing about this one is that Fabric, it's also adapting well-established SQL Server techniques. For people here in the call that had this background of SQL database or SQL DBA, they will be familiar with this tool called SQL Package, right? That can allow you to perform these two operations: either interact with DACPAC that only contains the schemas, or the BACPAC that contains both the schema and the data, right? So on our next demo, I'm gonna show you exactly how that works. All right. So let's jump to the next schema. We already know that we created a workspace. We have a database, and now we wanted to move the content of that database. I'm gonna show you how to do it using a DACPAC. That's gonna be really cool. So first, I'm going to show you how to generate a backup from an existing Azure database. I'm using Azure Database because this one, it's applicable for on-prem databases and Azure SQL databases. Not applicable for, let's say, MySQL or what is the other one? Postgres. This is not for those type of RDBMs. For all those ones, we need to use pipelines and other techniques, right? For this one, we're going to use, or I want to make clear that is for Azure SQL or on-prem SQL databases, this approach will apply. All right. So, and then we'll using a DevOps pipeline. This is not a necessity. However, I find the DevOps agents in the pipelines that usually contains the latest and greatest on the toolings that we need. So I usually put it in the pipeline. And the one bonus is that it makes a very easy repeated process, because I created the pipeline and I just can execute it over and over and over again and done with it. I don't need to do anything else. And then the third part of the option is just to create a mirror on existing Azure SQL databases. Okay, so I'm going to show you both things: how to create a mirror and how to do a BACPAC. So with that being said, let me go out of my presentation again for a few seconds. Now let's get going. Okay, and here I'm just going to show you a little code as well and some explanations. So as our goal here, the first part is for me to show you how to create the BACPAC from an existing database. So obviously we need an existing database, right? So let's go and let's imagine, or let's say that I have this database in Azure called Fabric. This is our resource group, and I have this database in my server called my Azure SQL DB. It's a database that I have here. Let me just go to this connection. Yes, I mean, there's nothing also very special on this one, other than that it contains some schema, some data that I'm using. And actually, I use this one for my personal use and using a lot of exercises where I use my own banking transactions to create examples, because it's just a familiar data set for me. And by doing this, I know whether the result is accurate or not. If I'm just developing, I just do a group by or any operation. And if I use my own transactions, I would know if it's accurate or no. So as you can see here, this is my pay slips over time. So this is the information, let's say, that I want to migrate. Okay, fair enough. How do we get this one? So the way you do it, it's by clicking this one, export, right? And you give it a name. You give it you give the name of how your BACPAC will be named. the subscription where you wanted to put this one. And this is particular because here in Azure, you need to store it in a storage database. So let's say that I want to use this storage right here, right in the backups container folder. There it goes. And then I just need to create the SQL password of the SQL server in which this database is hosted on. And I'm just going to click OK, right? I'm not going to do it because I already did it. I'm just going to show you how it's done. And once it's done, you will be seeing, to no one's surprise, that if I go to this storage account, and if I go to my blob service backups, and there it goes, right? So we have our BACPAC, as I mentioned it would be. Okay, fine. Now, we have our BACPAC. Now, how do we move it to Fabric? As I said, I'm going to use another pipeline, right, that I'm just going to run. And while it's running, I'm just going to explain a little bit of the code, right? So let's go to SQL Meets Fabric. I'm going to click OK. Then I'm just going to run the pipeline. I'm going to take SQL Meets Fabric. And I need a couple of pieces of information, especially, again, what we need is from our SQL Fabric SQL databases. We need the target server name, which is this one, right? So let's just plug this one in, boom. And we need our target database. Let's copy this one and let's read here. In my case, I already created or generated a backup file SAS URL. Basically, it's just a direct link to that specific BACPAC that I show you in the storage account, right? That's it. Nothing more than that. My target SQL type is Fabric because, as I mentioned, this works both for Fabric and Azure SQL databases, and the rest is just click run, all right? Now, while this thing's working, let me show you a little bit of the code for you to understand what this thing is doing in the background, right? And hopefully you find it interesting as well. So I'm going to go to this pipeline. So let me just remove this one and let me go to pipelines. Boom. SQL Meets Fabric. And let me show you what's going to happen. Okay. So this are just default values that I have on my YAML pipeline. And a couple of things, right? On this stage of my pipeline, I'm just using some SQL script. I mean, in YAML, you have PowerShell scripting, and you can use, as you can see here, I'm using an invoke web request with the blob SAS URL, right, in the destination path. So with that operation, I'm just copying the BACPAC, right, and make it available as an artifact within my pipeline for a subsequent stage consume that, right? But the important part in this is as follows, right? I'm automating in my DevOps agent the update of the tooling, right? The SQL. You remember that I was going to use the SQL package. So with this task, I'm just upgrading it, right? Updating it. Then I'm getting in my PowerShell through a PowerShell the password because I'm using a service principal to interact with the database. So with this one, I'm getting the secret for that service principal. And now with this one, the rest of the process is this. So we need to generate the token. If you would like to do something like I'm doing, where I'm not doing myself as an Hector, but using a service principal to represent me, right? We need to create a token, right, to interact with the API. And the first thing, as you can see here, I'm getting my token resource URL is who is the entity who's issuing that token. In this case, will be API fabric.microsoft.com, because remember, we're dealing with a Fabric-based SQL database. So we're getting this one. And here in this part, yes, we're getting the token, right? I'm just connecting to Azure SQL using the service principal, tenant, the credentials, and all that jazz. But here's the interesting part, right? As I mentioned, I'm going to use the SQL package.exe, right? And I'm issuing the, or let's say executing the SQL package.exe with some parameters, like the action is going to be an import. The source file is where the place where I receive my DACPAC, right? What is my target name? What is my database name? And the access token, right? Providing the permissions for me to operate and execute this operation, right? All right, that's it. So let's see how the pipeline is going. Let's go and check. And yes. All right, we are just in the right time for us to see what is going to happen when you execute deployment, a BACPAC on this one. So let me put this one again side by side. And just a second, let's see, where is my, wait. Yeah, is this one the page? No. Oh, there it goes. Yes. Okay. So as you can see here, right, now it's reaching the point in which it's deploying the actual BACPAC towards my SQL, my Fabric database, right? Check this out. Now it's deploying the dates, the catalogs, the expenses, and the transactions and everything that I have. So as you can see here, once it's complete, I'm just going to refresh. Let me just take this one, disconnect, and I'm just going to reconnect to my DB Fabric database. Okay, so let's see. It's going to do it in just a second. It's about to complete, and it's right about time for me to do this one. So like this, I'm going to close this. Okay, so Fabric tables, we are not having anything. Okay, there it goes. Yes, we have it. There it goes. So we have our dates, we have our earnings, we have our deposits. Let's check deposits. But because now we are looking at the database that we have on our Fabric. There it goes. We already migrated a Azure SQL database into our Fabric. Isn't that awesome? Let's go and let's execute. Let's see. Yeah, let's go directly into our Fabric. Boom. Let me just close this one. I don't have data on that one. So let me see. I should have data in all those tables. Let's see. I can grab the dates one. All right. Let's also check up here on our portal, right? Let's go to tables. Let's refresh this one. And tables, dim. Okay, let's go to dimension, tables, dates, and there it goes, right? So we have our data, we have our schema, we have everything that it was in our Azure database into this one. Now, we are running out of time. I want to really show you the next thing, which is the mirroring, right? Because this is also something that many people, and we are going to use the same database. Okay, how do we do the mirroring? Let's use the same database, right, as an example for this one. So let's go to Fabric SQL, and then again, we are going to create, first, we need to create a connection. This is really important. So we manage the connections here. As you can see, we're going to create something like this, right? I already did it, but I'm going to check really quickly in settings, right? That nothing weird other than that we are using or we are connecting to this. Let me see right here. Let's put this one side by side. Fabric. So in this connection, as you can see here, right? This one is the server that I'm using. The database that I'm using or providing the connection towards is this one, right? And obviously, I provide my authentication, my account, or in this case, the service principal or your account. I would recommend for you to use the service principal, right? It worked. So I created my connection. That's it. And then I'm going to my workspace, and then let's click a new item, and let's click on mirror. Okay. And let's pick our Mirrored Azure SQL Databases. Okay, you saw that there's, let me just do this one again. It won't take long, sorry. Mirror. Yeah, so check up the options before I go. We can mirror a Cosmos DB. We can mirror, this one is in preview. I haven't tried it myself, but I know that there's many people interested in exposing the Fabric Unity catalog. That's my understanding this mirroring option is. There's another couple of options like PostgreSQL or mirroring a Snowflake implementation. So in my case, just because I do have an Azure SQL database ready to go, I'm going to use this option. All right. So using this option, and the step is quite straightforward. Let me show you. First, it will ask you with what is the connection that you wanted to use. I mean, the one that I already created. So I'm going to click here. And then the next step is going to tell you what tables do you want. I mean, it's not necessarily for you to migrate or to mirror all your database. You can say, oh, okay, from this one, I just want to use all the names or this specific fact tables. I mean, whatever. I mean, I can imagine like a million type scenarios where you can choose which ones you want to migrate or mirror. All right, so let's make it quick. I'm going to take, let's say, a couple of them dimensions and a couple of fact tables just to make this process a little bit faster because we are running out of time. Well, let's do, and it will say, okay, so this is your data. I mean, are you sure these are the ones you want? Yes, I do. So cool. Let's connect, and you will see what's going to happen. So name my Azure SQL DB, right? And okay, my mirrored. Just to make perfectly clear what we are going to see in just a second, right? Create a mirror database. And what this thing is going to do is behind the scenes, right? It will create a replication process using the lakehouse capabilities, right? To start ingesting the data. I mean, the data and the transfer of data will be Parquet-based type of data, right? And then the process will maintain like this state where you can see on one side your data, and the other side the data in Azure. And the amazing thing, at least for me, is that it works so well. You know, and you will see. I mean, it doesn't just transfer the actual data. But what I find it really, really cool is that it also tracks, let's say changes in your schema, removing a column, adding a new column, deleting a table. The process of mirroring will pick those changes up, and you will see in just a second. I will prove it to you, right? Well, I don't know if we will have time because I do have. Do we have, by any chance, any questions already in the chat? Or should I spend this time? What do you think?
Yeah, actually, we have one question which is fundamental and can be interesting for the others to know
Cool.
that.
Sure.
So we have a question that asks to explain summary about BACPAC and DACPAC and what is the differences between these two.
Okay, that's a great question. So BACPAC and DACPAC are two concepts. I think I put this one here. Yeah, let me put this one right in front of me. Okay. So BACPAC and DACPAC. BACPAC, it's basically, a representation of your database, and probably I should say when I'm talking about the schema of a database, it means the definition of your SQL objects, right? Your tables, your views, your stored procedures. For instance, if I click right here, click on this one. Come on. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, no, come on. Let me just put this one, open up a little bit more. Yeah, okay. Let me open this one, and I think because this is a very nice, good question for people to understand that one, and I want to take a few minutes to explain correctly what I mean, right? So when I have a database and I'm going to right click on a table, come on, and right click, and then I'm just gonna script into this one, okay? So when I talk about the schema means this, right? The schema means the columns, the types, the primary keys, the definition of your database object. That's the schema, right? And the same, we have tables, we have views, we have stored procedures. Actually, I can show you as well in a stored procedure, really similar to this one. Boom. And the second part, right? So this is a schema. And the second part is the data, right? I don't have to explain what the data is, but what was pretty much what you have, the content of your table, stored procedures, and so forth. So the DACPAC is a concept on SQL database that it's a package that contains both the schema and the data which is in the database, right? The DACPAC with the D is just the schema, right? So a DACPAC just contains all these definitions in your database, like this, right? So the DACPAC, it's basically, I mean, just picture yourself as if you would do something like this, like tasks, and then actually I can produce like this, right? Export a data tier application. Actually, that's the acronym that the DACPAC, it's data tier application, right? And it's like you're doing this, and then generate all your scripts, and then putting in a little package that it's deployable, and this tool here, SQL package, takes that and then deploys it. Now, one of the cool things about DACPACs is this one. Let's imagine that you have a source database, right? And you have a target database. Through the DACPAC, because the DACPAC contains all the definitions, you can actually compare source to target, all right? So let me go and do also a quick exercise. Probably I can do using Fabric SQL DB. Yeah, let me just, I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone here because I wanted to do a couple more things, and then I will try to explain a little bit more on this concept. Park the question for a second here, and just gonna show you a couple of things, right? That we have our Mirror SQL database, correct? And through SQL Analytics endpoints, there it goes. Yeah, so we are now mirroring our Azure SQL databases into Fabric, right? So let's see, refresh, and we will have our changes. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to take, okay, let me see. Yeah, because I wanted to make a change in one of those tables. Okay, let's see. Yeah, there it goes, right? So I have dim, have tables, and I have these two tables, right? And this is what I'm going to show you. Okay, so I'm going to go to my SQL database, and I'm going to do a changes in my date, okay? So I'm just going to take script my table as, okay. So new, then I'm just going to go and do it like this. I'm just going to say alter table, all right, dim dates, and I'm just going to drop column. Why not? Which one you like? Let's say, okay, one of the first one. Okay, full day of month. I mean, why not? All right, so boom, done. And then in our source database, we are now one less column. Would you agree? So we drop day of month. So let's see, and we're going to go back to this mirror database for you to see when this disappears. Because now, remember, we have this mirroring. So this change should be reflected at some point in our mirrored table, right, along with the data. So it's a quick example that I'm going to show you. But I'm also show you another thing, which is the concept of DACPAC and the importance of using DACPAC to compare schemas, right? So if I go to, I'm going to go to this one, and I'm going to create a new, I am on Azure Data Studio, right? And I'm going to compare an Azure SQL database here. Okay, and then I'm going to take it. Sorry, I wasn't planning on this one. I really want to show you this Fabric SQL database. Yeah. So this one, I have create a project from database, right? You'll see in a second what's going to happen. So I'm going to create a new project that is like the project actually produces a DACPAC as a result. So I'm just going to go to my document and use my Azure Data Studio. And let's call it project, okay, database project DB, right? Let's put this one a little bit better. So let's create this one. All right. So it's actually extracting the definition, and you will see what's going to happen in just a second. Yes. Okay. Now we have this one, right? So let me just remove from project, and we have the database project and, you know, this stuff. Now, imagine that we want to compare now this definition against the origin, right? Our database. So let's click here and let's say schema compare. And let's use as our target our database Fabric, no, but not Fabric. Let's use, let me just connect. And let me going to connect to, where is it? Give me 1 second. Let me just put this one here. Okay, this one. Whoop. Server, like this. SQL account database is, okay, yes. There it goes. Oh, it's just asking me the MFA. So I'm just going to click OK. Select user account does not exist in the tenant, private, and cannot access the application. Oh, come on, really? Oh, no, sorry, I was picking the wrong account. Whoops. Yeah, now it will work. All right. All right. So let's see. Let's compare, right? Remember that we remove one column. If everything works well, now we will have the DACPAC, or in this case, the SQL database project, right? Will compare what we have versus what it is using only, you know, the table by table compare between those two databases. And if everything works right now, we will be seeing that we have one column and one side that we don't have in the other side. Oh, what the hell? Let's say the compare, it says the target, the source and the target must be the same using, okay, so probably because I'm change target platform, and I'm going to use Azure SQL database just to fulfill the requirement. Okay, this is now, let's give it another try. Let's see what happened. Okay, it's working. Let's see. Now, while this wall is doing its stuff, well, oh, I don't know. something happening here. I'm not quite sure why. But okay. So, but what I wanted to say is this, that you have this database project, right? When you build it, it creates a DACPAC containing the schema. And when you're doing the other process that I should show you, which is the export a database from Azure, it creates a BACPAC that contains the schema and the data. Well, hope that explains. Sorry, I have no idea what this one is not working, but anyways, I guess I warn you about the fact that some of the toolings are a little bit behind. I warn you about this one, and this is one of the stuff that sometimes is not working as expected. Go back to my mirrored database, and yes, as I predicted, we don't have the day of the month, right? As you can see here, it was, I believe, the fourth column from the top, day of month. Now we don't have it, right? So this thing can actually sync both schema and data. Is there any other question, by the way?
No, we don't have any question yet.
Okay. So I can go on and on and on, but as we agreed, we said that we will keep this one to 1 hour approximately, and I already reached a little bit in top of that time. So will you think we can wrap this up, or just give me a few more minutes? What do you think?
I think you can extend it to 5 to 10 if you can wrap it up in like 5-10 minutes.
Can I show you just one last thing, right?
Yeah, let's do it,
that
man.
it's super interesting. Okay, cool. Because this is also very important, right? And the last 5 minutes, I'm just going to use to do this. Okay, so let's forget about this one for the time being, okay? And the last thing I wanted to do is just to create or use a workspace setting and go to Git integration. I mean, Git enable this workspace, because that will allow us also to control our SQL, in code. So let me just go really quickly. I'm just going to connect my workspace. I'm going to use this branch, Fabric Catalyst. My Git repository is Fabric Catalyst. I'm going to create a new branch called Workspace. Let's see, Workspace. And then SQL Meets Fabric develop. I mean, this is a naming convention. It's not a requirement. It's just a naming convention that I use, right? A workspace, SQL Meets Fabric, the name of the workspace plus the branch indicating that this is a develop branch, right? Choose from. I have one branch that I use to create empty projects. So I don't want to create anything else. So let's create. And the last couple of things, I'm going to create Fabric items, right, in this Git folder. Okay, let's connect and sync. Yes. So for those familiar with Git, and I hope a lot of developers knowledgeable about this one, what you may you already know what's going to happen, right? Which is creating now this branch called develop, right? And you will see that we have the Fabric in the items folder, and you will see what's going to happen in just a few seconds. Because right now, what it's doing by this operation, here, right, is just creating in the backend, in code, in a branch, the code representation of all the items in your workspace, all right? So now we synced, and now we can see this, right? We have our database, and we have our schema here, okay? So we have it. And then let's say that we are starting, and as a developer, what usually happens is that you start doing stuff with your database, right? All right? That's expected. So let me go here, and I'm going to do something like drastic, but really visible, which is drop table. Okay, let's say dim dot date. Let's say that I myself or somebody does this one. Okay, let's click OK. And now let's refresh this one. All right. But check this out. But now we're going to workspace. But now we have on source control, you see this one, that in order for me to actually execute that drop, I need to commit the change, right? I mean, I need to commit the change to my develop branch, right? To get the code reflected as a best practice, right? So dropping table dates, right? Boom. And then commit. And then again, it's committing my changes. And eventually, when those changes are committed, let me show you this one. It's not yet. Okay, it's doing its thing. 1 second. Yep, working. All right. Okay, there it goes, right? So committed the changes. I refresh, the table is gone. But that's a tricky question. If somebody days later asks, hey, dude, what the hell? Who dropped that date tables and why? All right, you just have to go to your branch, right? Go to your branch and, do obviously a view history, right? Where is it? View history. And then you will see who and when and why and where and how. I mean, who was the person who committed this one, right? And actually who dropped the database, which is awesome, right? Because as a DBA and as a SQL developer, you know that this is a big point all the time. This happened all the time. Who the hell changed this column? Who the hell dropped this table and why, right? Now, with this, you have the answer. All right, so I thought that would be super cool for me to show you. And with that, I'm happy with wrapping up the session.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Hector. It was really good. And also, we learned a lot of things from you. And it's always great to have great speakers like yourself in Microsoft Zero to Hero stage. So yeah, thank you so much. Also, we got some comments like this. Nice session. Thank you, everyone. So basically, I believe there are a lot of people that they learn a lot of things from you, and those that they are going to watch recorded version of this live session on YouTube or LinkedIn. So they are going to learn a lot of things because it was really interesting topic. I personally learned a lot of things based on this information and knowledge you shared with us.
Awesome. I'm super glad to hear. And, last but not least, I mean, if you wanted to know more topics of this one, there's the link to my information. Go to my blog. Just check it out. If there's anything that you can use and it's helpful to you, that would be awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Have a lovely rest of your evening and enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And also, I suggest everyone to follow Hector because basically he's going to share a lot of things in his blog, and it's important for you to learn many things. And if you have any question, you can reach out him on LinkedIn. He's pretty much active if you have any specific question from him. So yeah, thank you so much again, Hector. And also, don't miss our next week's session. We already released June calendar as well, so make sure that you register for those sessions as well. And what I can say, it's like enjoy your weekend and thank you join us, and hope to see you all in the next session. So
thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.